Picture this. A Roman governor named Gnaeus Julius Agricola is standing in a command tent in the Scottish Lowlands. He is reading a dispatch by lamplight, his weathered face creased with the particular expression of a man who realizes he has made a catastrophic mistake. Agricola is 50 years old, lean and hard from 3 decades of frontier warfare, still wearing his scarlet paludamentum cloak clasped at the shoulder with a silver brooch bearing the insignia of his rank. The dispatch is from the 9th Legion. It is incoherent. The words are smudged with what might be mud or might be blood. The message is simple. They are under attack. The camp has been breached. The Caledonians are inside the walls. Agricola doesn't shout for a war council. He doesn't call for a vote. He grabs his helmet, a gilded officer's helm with embossed silver cheek guards, screams for his cavalry commander, and rides into the dark. Behind him, the fastest horsemen in the Roman army spur their mounts north. They are chasing the sound of 5,000 men dying, and they don't know if they'll arrive in time to save them or just to count the bodies. This is the story of the 9th Legion, the most cursed, most battered, and most mysterious unit in the history of the Roman Empire. The story of how 5,000 soldiers survived everything the world could throw at them: mutiny, massacre, ambush, and betrayal, only to vanish from the face of the earth without a trace. Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. The 9th Legion didn't earn its reputation the easy way. It inherited it through blood. The unit was born around 65 BC, likely raised by Pompey the Great, and it cut its teeth under Julius Caesar in Gaul. Caesar mentions the 9th in his own war commentaries, and not always favorably. During the civil war against Pompey, the legion mutinied at Placentia in northern Italy. The men refused to march. Caesar rode into camp alone, climbed a platform, and offered to decimate them, execute every 10th soldier by lottery. The mutiny collapsed within the hour. The 9th fought at the Battle of Pharsalus, where Caesar crushed Pompey's forces, and it bled again in the African campaign of 46 BC. After Caesar's assassination, the legion was recalled, reconstituted under Octavian, and thrown into the savage Cantabrian Wars in northern Spain, campaigns so brutal that entire Spanish tribes committed mass suicide rather than submit to Rome. The 9th earned its surname there, Hispana, the Spanish Legion. It sounds elegant. It was paid for in mountain warfare at knife point. By 43 AD, the 9th crossed the English Channel as part of the Emperor Claudius's invasion force. It hammered north through Britain, building fortresses at Lincoln and then at York, a sprawling base called Eboracum, with stone walls, bathhouses, granaries and barracks for 5,000 men on the bleeding edge of the empire. But in 61 AD, a queen named Boudica taught the 9th what bleeding actually looked like. Boudica wasn't a barbarian. She was a consequence. The Romans had flogged her publicly and assaulted her daughters. When she raised the standard of revolt, over 100,000 Britons answered. They fell on the Roman colony at Camulodunum and turned it into a crematorium. The 9th's commander, Quintus Petilius Cerealis, a reckless, aggressive officer who wore his ambition like a second skin, scraped together about 2,500 infantry and 500 cavalry and marched south to relieve the city. Somewhere in dense woodland, Boudica's army hit them on the march. Cerealis lost 80% of his infantry in an afternoon. He escaped with his cavalry, galloping back to his fortified camp like a man outrunning his own shame. Tacitus, who rarely wasted words on defeats, wrote the verdict in a single line. The Britons routed the legion and slaughtered the infantry to a man. The 9th was rebuilt with replacements from the Rhine, but the scar never healed. 20 years later, when the legion marched into Scotland, Tacitus hung a label on it that stuck like a brand. He called it Maxime Invalida, the weakest of all. Remember that phrase? Caledonians remembered it too. Now here is the first thing most people get wrong about the enemies the 9th was about to face, and it changes everything. In movies, The Caledonians are depicted as half-naked savages in blue woad paint, screaming and hurling themselves at Roman shields in disorganized waves. That is propaganda, pure and simple, and not even good propaganda. The Romans themselves didn't believe it. The Caledonian warrior class were Iron Age professionals. Their smiths produced long iron swords with blades exceeding 2 feet, weapons that gave them a devastating advantage in reach over the Roman gladius. Tacitus himself admitted the legions feared these oversized blades and their unwieldy size. Their chieftains wore chainmail shirts of interlocking iron rings, a technology that may have been a Celtic invention before the Romans ever adopted it. They deployed war chariots, 2-horse platforms from which warriors leaped to fight on foot before vanishing back into terrain that swallowed pursuit. Their coalition leader was a man the Romans called Calgacus, described by Tacitus as the most distinguished among the northern chiefs in both birth and valor. He was, by all accounts, a genuine strategist, a man who understood that the Caledonians could not beat Rome in a pitched battle, but could absolutely destroy Rome in the dark. And their greatest weapon wasn't iron, it was the land itself. Scotland in the 1st century was a killing maze of bogs, dense forest and mountain passes where visibility dropped to nothing. The Roman phalanx, the Roman formation, was a machine designed for open ground. In the Scottish Highlands, that machine had no room to operate. It was like trying to drive a tank through a swamp. Calgacus studied the Roman columns. He watched Agricola split his army into 3 independent groups, a decision that violated basic military logic but reflected the governor's arrogance and the pressure he was under from Emperor Domitian to deliver a quick victory. Calgacus chose his target, not the largest column, not the best defended, the one Tacitus had called the weakest. The 9th Legion, the legion that always almost died. This wasn't a random raid. It was a precision strike planned by a man who understood exactly what he was hunting. It is a summer night in 82 AD. The camp sits in a shallow valley somewhere in Fife, probably near the site archaeologists now call Dalginross, a natural bowl surrounded on all sides by high ground. The Romans had dug their standard marching camp fortifications, a V-shaped ditch, a rampart of packed turf and sharpened wooden stakes angled outward. Functional, temporary, not designed to survive a massed assault. Inside, the men of the 9th are settling into their leather tents, 8 soldiers to a section, arranged in neat rows along the camp's internal roads. The air smells like wet wool, wood smoke, and the sour tang of posca, the vinegar water mixture that Roman soldiers drank instead of wine. A legionary of the 9th in 82 AD carries roughly 60 pounds of gear. His torso is wrapped in the lorica segmentata, overlapping horizontal strips of iron, riveted together and hinged at the shoulders, designed to absorb the impact of a sword blow by distributing force across the strips. On his head, an imperial Gallic helmet, iron skull cap, broad cheek guards, a flared neck guard to stop a downward slash from reaching the spine. On his left arm, the scutum, 4 feet of curved laminated plywood covered in leather, rimmed with iron, centered with an iron boss that doubles as a punching weapon. On his right hip, the gladius, 20 inches of double-edged steel, designed for one purpose, short, brutal thrusts in tight quarters. But here is the detail that determines who lives and who dies tonight. All of that equipment is stacked beside the sleeping men. The armor is unbuckled. The helmets hang from tent poles. The shields lean against the canvas walls. Because it is the second watch, the sentries are posted and discipline says you can sleep. On the ridgelines surrounding the valley, shapes are moving. Thousands of them. They carry long swords in leather scabbards, oval shields with iron bosses, and bundles of iron-tipped javelins. Some of the chieftains wear chainmail. Most do not. They don't need it for what comes next. They are not charging. They are creeping. Moving through mist that rolls off the highland lochs like something alive, smothering sound, erasing shape. The Caledonians know this terrain by heartbeat. They know where the camp's 4 gates are. They know the ditch is shallow. They know the sentries are few. The first sentry dies at his post. A long iron blade driven upward under the jaw. He doesn't scream. He folds. The second sentry sees the shadow and opens his mouth. A javelin punches through his throat before the sound escapes. And then the night breaks open. The carnixes shriek, those bronze war horns shaped like the gaping mouths of dragons, held upright so the sound carries over the camp like a predator's scream. The Caledonian host surges over the turf rampart from three sides simultaneously, a wave of bodies and iron and hatred crashing through the gates and over the low walls. Tacitus wrote it in Latin so clean it cuts, Inter somnum ac trepidationem sisis vigilibus in rupere. In the confusion of sleep and panic, they cut down the sentries and burst in. You are a legionary of the 9th. You were dreaming of a river in Pannonia, or a girl in a Rhine town. You wake to screaming, not the organized shout of a Roman advance. This is animal sound, chaos sound, the noise of men being killed in the dark by enemies they can't see. You reach for your armor. The lorica segmentata requires a minimum of 2 minutes to buckle properly, and 2 minutes is a lifetime you don't have. You grab the gladius from beside your head. You grab the scutum. You shove your way out of the tent barefoot, bare-armed, wearing nothing but a linen tunic. And the first thing you see is a Caledonian warrior 3 feet away, his long sword already mid-swing. This wasn't a battle. It was a home invasion at the scale of a small city. The Caledonians poured through the tent lines like floodwater. Their long swords, normally a liability in tight formations, were devastating in this chaos. A 3-foot iron blade doesn't need precision when your enemy is half asleep and half dressed. It just needs momentum. They hacked through tent ropes, collapsing the leather canopies onto the men inside, then stabbed downward through the canvas at the shapes thrashing underneath. They targeted the officers first. The centurions, identifiable even in chaos by their transverse crested helmets, were swarmed. A centurion of the 9th, one of 80 men responsible for the discipline and survival of the entire legion, stands in the lane between 2 tent rows, his vinewood staff in one hand and his gladius in the other. He has no armor. He has no shield. He has the voice. He is screaming orders that form a pocket of sanity in the madness. Former, former, form up, form up. 3 legionaries stumble toward him, then 5, then 8. They lock the shields they manage to grab. Even without armor, the scutum wall is still a wall. The short Roman sword, useless in an open field against the Caledonian longsword's superior reach, is designed precisely for this nightmare. In the crush of the camp's narrow lanes, the Caledonians can't swing. The space is too tight. They're trying to slash in corridors where only thrusting works. And no army on earth thrust better than a trained Roman legion. But the Caledonians adapt. They are not stupid. They see the shield walls forming and they change tactics. Warriors grab the tops of Roman scooter and wrench them forward, creating a gap, and a second warrior drives a javelin point into the exposed armpit, where the shoulder meets the torso. Others drop to the ground and stab upward beneath the shield rim, targeting the inner thigh where the femoral artery runs close to the surface. A man hit there bleeds out in under 2 minutes. Some Caledonians snap the shafts of Roman pila, the throwing javelins stacked outside the tents, and use the heavy iron points as improvised daggers, punching them through the gaps in hasty shield formations. When the Romans tighten their wall, Caledonian warriors throw themselves bodily against the barrier, using mass and momentum to buckle the line. This wasn't the mindless charge of Hollywood barbarians. It was calculated, adaptive violence from warriors who had spent generations studying how the Romans fought and how to kill them when the rules broke down. The camp has become a nightmare of isolated pocket fights. Here, a knot of legionaries has overturned a supply cart and is using it as a barricade, the centurion behind it directing thrusts like a conductor. There, a cluster of Caledonians has reached the Principia, the headquarters tent, and they are hacking at the entrance, trying to reach the thing that matters more to the Romans than any man's life. The eagle. The aquila. A small bronze figurine of a bird on a wooden staff, carried by an officer called the aquilifer. It sounds ridiculous, a toy on a stick. But to a Roman soldier, losing the eagle was spiritual annihilation. Legions that lost their eagles were disbanded in shame. Men had been known to rip the eagle from its staff and hide it inside their tunics, choosing to die rather than let the enemy touch it. Somewhere in the burning, screaming chaos of that camp, the aquilifer of the 9th is fighting for the soul of the legion, with nothing between him and a Caledonian war party but a gladius and whatever men he can gather around him. The turf underfoot has turned to mud. not from rain, from blood. Pooling in the drainage ditches the Romans dug that afternoon. Men slip and fall and are killed on their knees in the dark by enemies they never see. The dead are piling up in the tent lanes, creating obstacles that the living trip over, stumble on, fall into. And then from the south a sound. Hoofbeats, hundreds of them building like a drum roll. And behind the hoofbeats a roar. Not chaos, not panic, but a disciplined, coordinated Roman battle cry from thousands of throats, timed to hit with the psychological force of a battering ram. Agricola has arrived. His scouts had tracked the Caledonian army's night march. The governor himself had force-marched his fastest cavalry and light infantry through the dark, following the enemy's trail by torchlight and instinct. Now he ordered his horsemen to slam into the Caledonian rear, while the infantry added their voices to a massed shout designed to do two things simultaneously: paralyze the attackers and tell the besieged that help had come. Tacitus recorded the pivot in a single sentence that captures one of the most extraordinary psychological reversals in military history. The men of the Ninth, he wrote, recovered their spirits, and now that they were sure of their safety, they stopped fighting for survival and began fighting for glory. The trap snaps shut. The Caledonians, caught between Agricola's relief force hammering their backs and the suddenly reinvigorated Ninth surging forward from the front, are compressed into the very killing ground they created. Their longswords need room, they have none. The Roman gladius needs 18 inches, it has plenty. The camp gates become choke points of carnage. Warriors trying to flee jam against warriors still pushing in, and the Romans work the press with mechanical efficiency. Shield boss to the jaw, gladius to the throat, step forward over the body, repeat. Tacitus used a single word for the fighting in the narrow gate passages: atrox, savage. And then the Caledonians do the thing they do better than any people on earth. They vanish. The survivors melt into the pre-dawn mist, pouring into bogs and forests where Roman cavalry cannot follow. The horses sink in the marshland. The pursuit dies in the dark. If not for those swamps and forests, Tacitus admitted, the war would have ended that night. It didn't. Dawn over the camp, and the scene that greets the survivors looks like the aftermath of a natural disaster staged in a slaughterhouse. The tent rows are flattened. Bodies lie tangled together, Roman and Caledonian, in the ditches and the lanes, some still locked in the grip of the killing blow. The sentries are found at their posts, throats cut, still wearing their equipment. The men who fought in their tunics bear the evidence on their skin. Slash marks across bare forearms from blocking sword blows meant for the face. Stab wounds in bare feet from stumbling over discarded weapons in the dark. Agricola toured the wreckage. And here is where the story takes a turn so absurd it could only happen in a military bureaucracy. The two Roman forces, Agricola's relief column and the surviving defenders of the Ninth, immediately began arguing about who deserved credit. Not quietly, not diplomatically. They argued like children fighting over a trophy. The men of the Ninth were furious. They insisted they had been holding the line just fine before Agricola arrived. They didn't need rescuing. They were Romans. They were handling it. Agricola's cavalry officers were equally indignant. They had ridden through the night. They had crashed into the enemy's rear at full gallop. They had saved the Ninth from annihilation, and they wanted everyone to know it. Pausanias and Amompharetus arguing over a boulder this was not, but it had the same pathetic energy. 5,000 men had nearly been wiped off the map. The camp was a smoking ruin. The enemy had escaped intact. And the Roman officer corps was having a schoolyard argument about participation trophies. Tacitus, who was writing this entire account to make his father-in-law look like a genius, couldn't resist including a detail that undermines the whole narrative. He casually noted that the two forces competed with each other, one claiming they brought rescue, the other insisting they hadn't needed it. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, that if the marshes and forests hadn't hidden the fleeing Caledonians, the victory would have ended the entire war. In other words, the Romans celebrated a triumph in which they nearly lost a legion, failed to destroy the enemy army, and achieved precisely nothing of strategic value. The Caledonians went home, regrouped, recruited more warriors, and returned the following year at Mons Graupius with a larger army than before. This wasn't a Roman victory. It was a Caledonian dress rehearsal. The Ninth survived, it always survived. That was its curse. It fought at Mons Gropius in 83 AD, where finally cornered the Caledonian coalition and crushed them in open battle, though 2/3 of the enemy army escaped into the Highlands. The Ninth returned to York and spent years rebuilding the fortress in stone, stamping its name on tiles and bricks with an almost desperate insistence. Legio IX Hisp. We are here. We exist. We are still a legion. The last of those stamps dates to 108 AD, a stone gateway at York, dedicated to the Emperor Trajan. A mason carved the words, a builder set the stone, and the Ninth Legion's name was fixed in rock for the last time. After that, silence. No battle report, no transfer order, no imperial decree of disbandment. Around 122 AD, the 6th Legion Victrix arrived from Germany and moved into the 9th's barracks at York, like a new tenant occupying a vacated apartment. Emperor Hadrian ordered his famous wall built across northern Britain, and the 9th was simply not there. For over a century, the Romantic explanation held. The 9th marched into Scotland and was swallowed by the mist, 5,000 men walking into the Highlands and never coming back. Rosemary Sutcliffe immortalized this story in her 1954 novel, The Eagle of the 9th, built around a real artifact, a 6-inch bronze eagle found buried in charred rubble at the Roman town of Silchester in 1866 by a country vicar named Reverend J.G. Joyce. Joyce believed he had found the lost aquila of a Roman legion. The idea was beautiful. It was also wrong. Modern archaeologists concluded that the Silchester eagle was almost certainly a decorative piece from a statue of Jupiter, abandoned as scrap metal and buried accidentally when the building burned. It wasn't a sacred relic, it was recycling. And in 1959, archaeologists in Nijmegen, the Netherlands, found tile stamps reading Legio IX Hisp, dated to around 120 AD, a decade after the 9th supposedly vanished. The Legion, or part of it, had been transferred to the continent. This wasn't an annihilation in the mist, it was a reassignment. And what happened after that is where the mystery turns genuinely dark. Some scholars believe the 9th was destroyed in the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea between 132 and 136 AD, a war so devastating that the Emperor Hadrian reportedly didn't even bother with the customary victory greeting to the Senate. Others point to Armenia, where around 161 AD the Parthians surrounded and annihilated an unnamed Roman legion, driving its commander to fall on his own sword. There are scholars who think the 9th simply dissolved, men reassigned, numbers retired, a bureaucratic death by 1,000 transfers. What we know for certain is this. By 197 AD, 2 independent lists of Rome's active legions were produced. Both contained exactly 33 names. Neither included the 9th. And this is the part that should unsettle you, because Rome did not erase legions casually. When a legion was destroyed in honorable combat, Rome rebuilt it. When 3 eagles were lost at the Teutoburg forest, Augustus spent decades recovering them and had the moment carved on his own breastplate in the most famous statue ever made of a Roman emperor. But when a legion was silently deleted from the rolls, not rebuilt, not replaced, not avenged, just removed, it meant something worse than destruction. It meant disgrace, mutiny, surrender. The kind of failure that Rome's only response to was pretending it never happened. The 9th wasn't mourned, it was unmade. There is a stone in the Yorkshire Museum. It is the memorial of Lucius Ducius Rufinus, a standard-bearer of the 9th, carved in crisp military relief. He is young, 28 years old when he died. He stands rigid in his dress uniform, holding the Legion's signum, a staff stacked with medallions, ribbons, and an open palm emblem. His face is smooth, his posture is perfect. He is a man carved in the act of believing in something. His memorial tells us his name, his rank, his age, his legion. It does not tell us what happened to the 5,000 men who marched beside him. It does not tell us where they fell, or whether anyone was left to bury them, or why the greatest military bureaucracy the ancient world ever produced decided their story wasn't worth recording. The stone is all that remains, a young man holding a standard for a legion that the empire decided to forget. We prefer our vanished legions romantic. We want the Highland mist, the desperate last stand, the eagle clutched by dying hands in some unnamed glen. That story is clean. It has heroes and an ending that makes good cinema. But the real lesson of the 9th is more uncomfortable. We remember the legions that died gloriously, the 3 at Teutoburg, the defenders at Alesia, the Spartans at Thermopylae. We build movies around beautiful defeats because the dead don't live long enough to disappoint us. The 9th did something worse than die. It survived over and over, carrying the scar of every disaster, Boudica, Caledonia, the label of weakest of all, until Rome finally decided the easiest thing to do was erase it. Not with swords, with silence. 5,000 men didn't vanish into the mist. They vanished into the paperwork. And in the Empire of Rome, that was the death you didn't come back from. If you made it this far, you're a true history enthusiast. Please verify your subscription now. It really helps the channel keep these forgotten stories alive. Check out this next video on the screen about the fall of Rome's greatest legions, where we explore what it took to kill the unkillable machine. I'll see you there.